Welcome to the RotoWire Prospect Podcast, brought to you by Vivid Seats. I'm your host, James Anderson, and as we've done the past couple of years, I'm having Sam Dykstra from MLB Pipeline on today, and we're going to talk about the most noteworthy minor league assignments for 2025. So just lots of interesting level assignments for prospects, maybe some loaded rosters we're going to discuss here, and very happy that Sam's able to join me. Sam, thank you so much for joining me, and I'll let you start it off with your most notable assignment of 2025.
Yeah, no, first off, thanks for having me. I feel like this is now a rite of spring for us now. Like the birds are chirping, the flowers are blooming, and we're doing this podcast talking about prospect assignments. So thanks again for asking me back this year. Yeah, I mean, let's start with the one that I think a lot of given both the player and the organization that he's in and their recent history. But still, it was nice to get confirmation that this is happening. Jesus Made is opening the season at Single A Carolina. Many people know Jesus Made now. He's basically a consensus top 100 prospect. But if you don't, he was somebody the Brewers signed as part of their international class last year. He certainly wasn't on the same level as somebody like a Leo DeVries, who we saw move to stateside ball and full season ball very quickly last year. He spent the time at the Dominican Summer League, but his numbers were really strong, but it was the underlying data that really stood out to me and a lot of other evaluators, and, was allowed us to push him onto the top 100 pretty ahead of time. He ran just a 15% chase rate. He made contact on 89% of his swings. But he also had a 47% hard hit rate, and his 103.9 mile per hour 90th percentile X velocity was on par with Jazz Chisholm Jr. and Jose Ramirez in the majors. And he was doing that already after freshly being signed. Hearing some stories from the Brewers, they were saying they were getting calls almost every day about, like, you have to hear what Made did today. They were very excited about him in the offseason. Brought him early over stateside this spring, continued to get him looks, some even on the big league side. And, to push him out like this, he doesn't turn 18 until May. I mean, it feels like it was lining up with their schedule, but at the same time, it's still nice to take a step back and be like, this is as aggressive as you can really possibly get. They've done this in the past. Jackson Chourio, even Chourio 3 years ago, didn't open up the year in Single A Carolina. He was held back at extended spring training for a bit, skipped over the Arizona Complex League, and then joined the Mudcats. But Joffrey Rodriguez, Luis Lara, they've done this with the guys they really like coming out of the DSL. That speaks to the Brewers scouting, their development down there on the island. And then, Made slots right in, and he's not alone either. Luis Pena's also there. I kind of wonder how they'll split time at shortstop and third base. What I was hearing in the offseason is that they want to prioritize Made, I think, because they view him as the better prospect and try to get him as much time at shortstop as they possibly can. But Pena's a plus runner himself and has a strong arm. So maybe we see those guys rotate between shortstop and third base with the Mudcats. But that's a real exciting one for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Couple interesting factors there. I mean, the Made point, do you think he's the most hyped prospect ever who's only played in the DSL? I think he is for me. Like in terms of like hyped before they make their next assignment, like following.
Yeah, I mean, you think of like almost like the holy trinity of who would be hyped international signings. It's Jason Dominguez, who skipped over that league entirely, partly because of the pandemic. Ethan Salas and Leo DeVries, who skipped over that because they're in the Padres system. Right. So like I think part of that,
I think Vlad skipped over it if you want to go that far back, and like Wander Franco, I think those guys started in like the Appy League, if I'm remembering correctly.
But
or maybe one in the GCL.
Yeah, I think part of that is just the fact that we have more access to data now. Like it used to be, it's the Dominican Summer League. Just sprinkle that with as much salt as you can. We'll see how they perform once they get here. But knowing what those hard hit rates are, and I applaud the Brewers for being pretty forward about that. They tweeted those out. I mean, that's not something I had to dig very hard to get. They were very forthcoming about like, hey, this is a guy we believe in and we want our fans to be excited about. I wish more teams did that. But I think we also have access to other data in the DSL now. Like it just talking to teams about it, understanding these players more, it can add to that hype earlier.
Right. Yeah, we know what to look for. We're not just looking for home runs and, ignoring like a 24% strikeout rate, right? We're looking
Exactly.
at just how ready this guy might be to have success against more advanced pitching. And then the Luis Pena factor too, like, I think most people probably expected Mate to get that vote of confidence based on the Brewers track record. But I think with Pena, he has a chance to really climb significantly if he can make a bit more impact offensively. Obviously, the speed is great, but what do you think about his chances of maybe showcasing a bit more power than he did last year?
Yeah, I think that's going to be the key there, is just trying to get a little bit more lift, a little bit more strength. That's going to come naturally. Like if we were talking about a teenager in this way, we'd just be like, well, that's just the next step. But now
Yeah.
that he's being compared to Made and getting compared to the Laras and the Rodriguezes of the world. I mean, we've seen Luis Lara basically swing in that wet newspaper for the last 2 years after
Yep.
getting this type of assignment. So it's not always just a sign of like, hey, we think he's ready right now. It's just we think he's ready for this assignment and ready to be tested and have his iron sharpen iron, essentially.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really exciting duo, getting that very aggressive push over the Arizona Complex League. And I mean, who knows? Like Jesus Mate, if he lives up to the higher end of expectations, he might be splitting the season between the two Class A affiliates. So we'll see how that goes, especially once it heats up in Wisconsin. Okay, so I will nominate a noteworthy assignment to discuss. Just an easy one here. Nick Kurtz getting the bump to AAA. You look at the other top hitting prospects from last year's draft class: Travis Bazzana, Jack Caglione, JJ Weatherholt. They all got assigned to AA. Cam Smith, of course, got assigned to the big league roster in Houston, so that qualifies as a notable assignment. But Nick Kurtz getting the vote of confidence, going to AAA, and he's already raking, obviously in a very favorable hitting environment there. But I did think it was notable that the A's didn't really mess around by sending Kurtz back to AA. They're just like, hey, you're going to AAA, you're one step away. And I mean, if he keeps raking like this, I don't think they're going to be able to keep Nick Kurtz down for long.
Yeah, I mean, he was somebody who I was writing for the Pipeline newsletter the other day of like, when can we expect top 40 prospects to reach the major leagues? And I think I put July for him. And then I'm thinking, if he hits in Vegas like we think he can, because it's Vegas, it's tough to think that he would still be there by the All-Star break. Now, the part of that is, I think a lot of people have circled Tyler Soderstrom as like a breakout candidate this year for the A's. And then Brent Rooker plays DH. So there's not a natural spot to slot in Kurtz, and maybe that helps them keep him down for a little while longer. But like, the approach is really good. The power is really great. He's got more extra base hits than strikeouts so far. Very small sample, I get it, but still, like, that's very encouraging for a guy who's never seen AAA and is just jumping straight from the ACC there, essentially. I had this down too. I mean, I think if not for Cam Smith, Nick Kurtz would be the talk of the 2024 draft. They just happened to run in against somebody else who got pushed a little bit even more aggressively.
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about how those pieces fit there with the A's, and I believe in Soderstrom's breakout case. So that's what makes it complicated. Is obviously Brent Rooker's year last year was awesome. If you believe in Soderstrom and you believe in Kurtz, it is kind of a traffic jam there in terms of where the pieces fit. But I think your idea for July, like, I would kind of say, like, if Kurtz is just healthy and raking, even if Soderstrom and Rooker are performing, I don't know if they can keep him down much past like early June. So
no, I agree. I mean, I think it's going to be a fascinating case of like, exactly what is he going to do and how much. Again, this is going to be a time where thankfully we have StatCast data for the AAA level and we can rely on some other things. Not that I'm doubting what his numbers will be, but like, Vegas, as you said, an incredibly great place to hit. And if he's slugging 700 at home, we're going to have to weigh that appropriately.
Yeah. And I mean, for dynasty leagues, like, his fantasy value is very safe as long as he's in the PCL. Currently hitting 471 with 2 home runs and a 15% strikeout rate through 4 games there for Nick Kurtz. So yeah, I mean, I thought like the Caglione assignment to AA was a natural one, despite just how much noise he made in spring training. You give him that AA assignment and just sort of see how he does, and don't risk him really falling flat in the AAA assignment. But love to see Nick Kurtz at AAA. Okay, Sam, back to you for another noteworthy minor league assignment.
Yeah, so my last pick was the Brewers are going to brewer. This is the Padres are going to Padre, and sending Ethan Salas to Double-A San Antonio, somewhere he's already been technically. He got a cup of coffee there in 2023 before getting hurt. But you look at the surface level numbers for Ethan Salas last year, 599 OPS in Fort Wayne. Even that was kind of I mean, it wasn't so much aggressive, but in a holistic way it was. If you take a step back, like a catcher that young, and he's still only 18 now, going to high A is pretty aggressive. And for the first time in his career, he stumbled and did that a lot in the first half, made some adjustments around the middle of the year. He actually went back to San Diego, worked with their hitting coaches for a while, just to be like, hey, what have you guys noticed? Made some posture changes, I think is the way to put it. Stood a little bit taller in the box. If you look at his numbers, he was getting under the ball a lot, which was just resulting in catchable fly balls instead of stung line drive. So he made that adjustment, had a 109 WRC plus in August, carried those improvements into the Arizona Fall League, where, again, he was one of the younger players. So I get it to some degree. But on the other hand, I think pairing him with Leo DeVries, who was opening with High A Fort Wayne this year and was on a really good trajectory last year, Lake Elsinore, that doesn't surprise me so much that he got a promotion. I think pairing those guys together and allowing them to build off each other would be a really great opportunity. And just allowing Salas to be like, okay, I have fully dominated High A. Let's move me up now with some confidence. But listen, San Diego knows the guys they can push. They've done this for years. They did it with Jackson Merrill last year. We saw how that worked out in the major leagues. They believe in Ethan Salas. They believe he's a really, really strong defensive catcher. I think he's going to help out that pitching group at San Antonio that has some pretty notable names as well. I think that can't be underrated. Like, we can look at the offensive stats, but if he's just as good defensively and helping out that pitching staff, maybe he's a Double-A catcher and a High A hitter. How do you balance that? But it's just notable to me that I thought there was a chance that if the San Diego's philosophy of being aggressive with their really, really good prospects was going to stop somewhere, it was going to be with Salas after his 2024 season. And clearly that's not the case.
Yeah, I had the exact same notes for Salas. I was a little surprised, like you said, this is in the Padres and AJ Preller's DNA to be aggressive with guys like this. And they've been aggressive with him kind of every step of the way, and they haven't stopped here. But I did sort of think that they might just give him, 6 weeks to really kind of find his footing at the plate. And I guess for people rostering Salas in dynasty leagues, it's notable. Like, I like pointing out these assignments because I think it's important to have the right expectations. And I think with Salas, you should kind of be expecting him to have another year where the bat isn't quite meeting his sort of name value as a prospect just based on this assignment. And then on the flip side, I think if Salas were to say be like a 106 WRC plus, like 110 WRC plus at Double-A, that would be incredibly encouraging to me with Salas and his offensive trajectory. So I wouldn't be surprised if he struggles, but then if he does have success in this assignment, I think that's going to be very notable.
Yeah, and I think 105, 110, I think that is in his bag if he carries those adjustments that he made. It'd be one thing if we were just like, oh, well, he was young, he just needs more time. But like when you can see actual change happen in season, I think that helps. And again, he was around that major league club a lot this spring as well. And everybody who throws to the guy, I know this is more of a fantasy viewpoint than an overall prospect viewpoint, but like everybody loves throwing to that guy. And I think that's got to be taken into account here as well.
That absolutely matters because like just look at like Luis Campusano. He's a fine hitting catcher, but he just doesn't play enough to be a fantasy catcher because of his defense. So
exactly.
Salas's defense absolutely matters. Some really good MILB assignments we've discussed so far with Sam Dykstra from MLB Pipeline. We're going to head to a quick message from our sponsors. When we come back, I've got some more players from the 2024 draft class who I thought had some pretty interesting assignments. We'll talk about that next. But first, finally, baseball is back. This MLB season, knock it out of the park with vivid seats and score great tickets to the biggest games of the year. Every fastball, every home run, every eye-popping play of your favorite team live and in person. Plus, with Vivid Seat Rewards, you earn rewards for every single purchase. Just buy 10 tickets, then cash in your credit towards your free 11th ticket. Talk about an easy win. And here's a pro reward tip. When buying tickets for your whole group, split the bill and make progress towards your free 11th ticket even faster. From behind the dugout to the upper deck, Vivid Seats has great tickets for all the 2025 games that matter to you. Just visit vividseats.com or download the app today. Vivid Seats, experience it live. See vividseats.com/rewards for terms and conditions. March Madness is here, and if you're looking for a way to get in the game, it's time to check out Rebet, the ultimate social sportsbook and casino platform. With over 100 plus leagues on the sportsbook and 24/7 live dealer casino games, Rebet is striving to give users an experience they haven't had elsewhere. All March long, Rebet is rolling out daily promos, making it the ultimate month for exciting offers for their fans. Right now, for a limited time, Rebet is matching your first purchase up to $100 in Rebet cash when you use promo code ROTOWIRE. Download Rebet today on the App Store or Google Play. Enter code ROTOWIRE and start playing with your promo funds. It's time to play, predict, and experience the madness only on Rebet. Okay, back with Sam Dykstra of MLB Pipeline. We're discussing the most noteworthy MILB assignments of 2025 so far. And Sam, I mentioned Nick Kurtz on the hitting side and where some of the other top hitters from last year's draft got assigned. I'm interested in your take on where arguably the top 3 college starters from last year's draft got assigned, because they're all at 3 different levels. We have Hagen Smith of the White Sox going to Double-A. We have Chase Burns of the Reds going to High-A, and we have Tre Yesavage of the Blue Jays going to Single-A. So what do you make of that those 3 pitchers who, Durangelo Chinte, I think, has maybe a case as a top 3 guy in the class, but I think for most of draft season, it feels like those 3 pitchers were kind of the top 3 college pitchers in the class. So what do you make of the fact that they were assigned to 3 different levels to start off 2025?
Yeah, I think you have to take them as individual cases. I also had Chase Burns down on here, so I'm glad we're talking about it. I'll start with him. I was a little surprised to see him go to High A, just because, again, like, the stuff has been really good. It looked really great this spring. In the one start I believe he had in front of StatCast cameras, he was up to triple digits. He touched 100.2 miles per hour with 19 inches of induced vertical break. He had a kind of short slider in the 89 to 91 mile an hour range. He's also got a curveball and a changeup. Like, all of those pieces I think would do pretty well at Double-A. But then you look to last year, and who was the Reds' first round pick this time last year was Rhett Lauder, also out of Wake Forest. Lauder had 5 High A starts, and Lauder doesn't have the quality of stuff that Chase Burns does, but I think he has more pitchability and could have been a quick mover. Obviously, we saw him move up really quick. So I think this is just the Reds' MO. I think they just want Burns getting his feet wet, dominate for 5, half a dozen starts with Dayton, and then it's clear that they will promote you. This is not like he will be in Dayton until the All-Star break. I think this is just easing him in and allowing him to post some really special numbers. Tre Yesavage, I will say, Single-A, I don't look into that too much. I think, again, that's more about establishing a foundation. Talking to the Blue Jays this spring, and I was kind of asking, like, what are you guys thinking about with Yesavage? And it was pointed out to me, we have some affiliates that are very far north, and it is not fun to pitch there in April. So, which is Vancouver and New Hampshire. Now, I don't think Yesavage was ever going to open with New Hampshire, but sending him to the Northwest League, literally the one Canadian team in minor league baseball, for the month of April, was not exactly setting him up for success. Keeping him close to the complex, literally at the complex, with Dunedin, I think allows him to get eased into the season a bit more. We saw the stuff in the spring breakout game. It's really good. It's all exactly where you want it to be. The fastball he's at, it's more of a cutter now than a slider, and he's also got that splitter that's really good. I fully expect him to dominate and be in Vancouver by May. So don't look into that one too much. Hagen Smith had a rough spring, and I think part of the reason why he's at Birmingham is they're putting that aside, the White Sox, and saying that's small sample, whatever. We believe in you as arguably the best left-handed pitching prospect in baseball, except they have the guy who is the top left-handed pitching prospect in baseball, Noah Schultz. Apparently those guys are buddy-buddy. They are now at Birmingham together. Noah Schultz not moving up to AAA, staying at AA, along with Grant Taylor. That is a heck of a rotation. Those 3 guys alone.
I missed that Grant Taylor was at AA. That's very notable.
Yeah. all three of those guys sticking together, I think, is huge, because what are the White Sox doing right now? They're clearly rebuilding. They want these guys around each other. They want to build that camaraderie and to build off each other and maybe even have a competition. I mean, you talk about the Red Sox big three. One of the things that always stood out to me is how competitive they were. If one guy hit a ball 105, the next one wanted to hit 106. If one guy gets 8 strikeouts, Noah Schultz strikes out 8 one game, you bet Hagen Smith is going to want to strike out 9 the next. So I think there's something to that as well. Yeah, I probably could have seen if Chase Burns is a high A pitcher, Hagen Smith is. But I think they trust him enough coming out of a big conference to handle that well enough and to rub off, or take some lessons from a Noah Schultz who has been at that level before and grow into it. Even if he struggles a little bit out of the game, would not sell my stock on Hagen Smith yet.
Yeah, I mean, that Birmingham rotation, quite a top 3. And that future White Sox rotation, I mean, Sean Burke's looking really good. Shane Smith, I thought looked pretty good yesterday. So the White Sox rotation in general could be really impressive in a year or two. Do you expect Noah Schultz to move up separate from those other 2 guys, or do you think it's possible that they just kind of make it a meritocracy and everyone moves up when they deserve to move up?
I think he would be the first one gone. Yeah, because he spent all of last year there. The only thing is he needs to build up a workload. I mean, they capped him at 4 innings a start, which is kind of incredible. If you look at his game log, it's like, did something go wrong here? No, it was just they wanted him getting in there and getting out quick and maintaining his health from beginning to the end of the season. Now you want him going 5-6 innings. But the stuff is the best of that group. He has the most AA experience. He doesn't have the health questions that Grant Taylor has. I would expect if this first month goes as we think it would, that he'll be in Charlotte soon enough, which is no easy assignment either. Charlotte's an extremely good hitters park. So maybe they're sheltering him from that for a little while longer as well.
Yeah, so very good context there on why Trey Yesavage is at single A, why Chase Burns is at high A, and how long he might be at high A, not long. And Hagen Smith joining that loaded Birmingham rotation. Okay, where do you want to go next, Sam?
There was another AAA guy I want to touch on, but I'll save that one for after this one. We just talked about the Blue Jays, so let's keep it going with Arjun Nimmala, who was confirmed this morning that he is heading to high A Vancouver. Arjun Nimmala, their 2023 first round pick, as many people might remember, was assigned to single A Dunedin last year, was young for his draft class already. So that felt like, okay, that's interesting. He's actually breaking with the club and not being held back in extended spring training, and then hit 167 through his first 29 games with a 34.4% strikeout rate. So they had an in-season reset. They sent him back to the Florida Complex League. They worked on some posture changes. When he got back to the Florida State League on June 27th, he slugged .564 the rest of the way, had 13 homers in his final 53 games. I mean, it was exactly the Arjun Nimmala I think the Blue Jays were hoping for. So there was one school that would make you think okay, let's send him back there. That's great that he ended well, but he's still going to be young for the FSL compared to some of these other guys. Let's keep that train moving instead of throwing him in the deep end again and expecting him to swim. But I do like that they did this because, in part, Nimmala has begun his career by showing he can make in-season adjustments, that he can overcome a tough start. That's going to be huge for his career moving forward. If he gets to Toronto someday and is batting $150 for the first 2 weeks, he can call back on that Dunedin experience. If he goes to the cold of Vancouver, bringing that back from our Savage conversation, and hits $150 through the first 3 weeks, he can be like, well, I know I can make in-season changes and that can work. I don't need to just stick with all the work I did in the offseason. So I like that they rewarded what he was doing in the FSL. You can make the case that he was the FSL's best player down the stretch last year, and that's a reason why he's now the top prospect in that system and in the top 100 in general because of that power. It was going to be a fascinating debate. And I think the Blue Jays thought long and hard of do we want to do this again? And the fact that they did, and it had success last year, why not run it back and get aggressive with Nimmala again?
Yeah, that's a great one to bring up. I think a lot of what I said about Ethan Salas applies here, where just your expectations, if he's struggling through the first 6 weeks, don't run out and drop Arjun Nimmala in your dynasty leagues. But then on the flip side, like if he happens to be really making an impact after this aggressive assignment and the strikeouts are in like the 27-28% range, like, you know, that up arrow is gonna keep pushing with Nimmala. I want to juxtapose a couple guys who are about the same age, a couple outfielders. Lazaro Montes with the Mariners, who got assigned back to high A, and then Josue Paula of the Dodgers, who got assigned to double A. Paula actually is, I want to say, like 6 months younger than Montes, and they both were very productive last year at high A. So I think it's just notable that, like, and these guys are pretty closely ranked on my dynasty rankings. The Dodgers obviously giving a big vote of confidence with Josue DePaula, still just 19 years old. And, you know, I think the big difference between him and Montes is DePaula has the approach and the hit tool kind of figured out. It's just a question of how much power can he get to. And he's the one who goes to double A, whereas Montes, we know about the power. And it seems like the Mariners just really wanted to give him an easy landing spot here. I'm sure it won't be that long before he's up at double A, but basically notable because of the age similarity, the positional similarity, and just the fact that one's going to double A, one's going to high A.
Yeah, I mean, both of these guys have been declared to be the next Jordan Alvarez, right? Like,
that's
a comp you'll hear plenty of times of like, yeah, they're playing the outfield now, but how long is that going to last? So yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting in both of those cases because you look at the Dodgers. Obviously, they've done a tremendous job at developing players in recent years, and they trust their guys. And the Mariners right now, I know that their strength is in pitching on the major league side, but on the minor league side, it's hitting. And they don't have a power guy like Montes. A lot of these guys otherwise are more hit tool forward. So, you know, I think part of it is getting Montes more defensive reps in high A and really trying to force him there without like, hey, you need to work on your defense and you need to worry about double A pitching.
Sure.
But yeah, no, it's fascinating on both of those cases.
And both of them, yeah, like you said, like the defense is something they both do need to work on. So, I don't know. What do you think DePaula is going to do at double A, I guess, is because like if he goes to double A as a 19-year-old and then all of a sudden we have the power breakout, that seems like it's just a matter of time. That would be incredibly impressive. But like, what do you think his odds are of kind of hitting the ground running after this aggressive assignment?
Yeah, I think it might take him a little bit of time. I mean, it's pretty interesting to me that he slugged only 356 last year at high A. So I think you would want that number to get to like 410 at double A, and that would still be a significant improvement. But I fully think he could be like a 25 homer guy this year. I think he's kind of hitting that stretch where the power is going to start showing up more in games. And if he starts the year in Tulsa and then moves to Oklahoma City at some point, maybe you see that really jump, even though he would be certainly young for AAA. So I think he's going to beat last year's total of 10 homers, even if he struggles out of the gate. But I think 20 is certainly within reach given his projection.
Yeah. So that, again, it's all about expectations with these guys. So if you have Montes in your dynasty league and he has 6 homers in the first 3 weeks, that wouldn't really surprise me. And it also wouldn't really tell me that much. And then with DePaula, if he gets off to a slow start at double A, wouldn't really surprise me. Wouldn't really tell me that much. Okay, Sam, where do you want to go next?
I will go to another outfielder who is at the AAA level right now, and Justin Crawford of the Philadelphia Phillies. There are only 5 players right now who are 21 or younger at AAA. They're all top 100 prospects on our list, and names many people listening right now or watching right now will know: Roman Anthony, Samuel Basayo, Moises Ballesteros, Cole Young, and Justin Crawford. Now, Justin Crawford played 40 games at AA last year, hit 333, slugged 455, had 3 homers, also had a 61.3% ground ball rate. Right now, with Lehigh Valley, that ground ball rate is 87.5. Again, a very small sample. I totally understand that. But that's always been the thing we've circled with Justin Crawford, right? Like, the guy can hit the ball. He can hit the ball hard. He can run. He might be an 80-grade runner. And I saw him yesterday lace one down the right field line into the corner, moved into third base. He, according to StatCast, it would have been the third fastest home to third time of the major league season so far. So we know the guy can fly. And talking to the Phillies this spring, one thing I heard was like, hey, if the guy hits 310, we're not going to try to fix him. Like, if this is just who he's going to be moving forward, we're not really in the business of trying to constantly tell him to lift the ball. We're just going to let him be who he is. And I get that to a degree, but I would just like to have seen him really force his way out of Reading, like show a ground ball rate around 50% instead. And Reading is a great place to hit. Like, having 3 homers in 40 games there last year is kind of below what you would expect for a top prospect. I was a little surprised. I think they like him a lot. I think they envision him, playing center field for them for a long time. And they want to get aggressive with the guy and keep showing him that, hey, we believe in you. But I was a little surprised that he got pushed out this quickly.
Yeah, this is a great one. I was surprised too. And Crawford is someone I've been quite a bit lower on through the years, just from a fantasy standpoint, because of it just sort of seemed to me like something was going to have to give with the approach, because not only have ground balls been a huge issue for him, but every stop prior to this year, he's hit more balls to the opposite field than to the pull side. So it's just kind of, he's not even trying to really do anything other than hit the ball into the gaps and use his speed. Like, he's not trying to hit it over the fence that often unless he's just in a really favorable count. And I worry about that. And then I worry, I guess, a little bit even more after this assignment, just because I don't really expect him to show any improvement in those areas. And now you're saying that they're not even really trying to help him improve in those areas. So
I don't want to take it away from them completely and say they're not trying to help him. I just think that they are okay if he becomes a faster version of like a Jacob Wilson or, like somebody who hits for an average. Now, he doesn't have Wilson is somebody who has elite contact ability. And I'm not saying Crawford has that, but again, if he's batting, he's consistently flirting with a 300 average, they seem okay living with that. So,
do you think it's the type of thing where AAA pitchers, more so than AA pitchers, might just be able to kind of expose his weaknesses, or do you think the bat to ball pitch recognition is good enough that he can kind of not really fall flat after this assignment? Because like you said, he's statistically, batting average wise, every stop he's been really way up there. Do you think he can kind of just make this work, or do you think this could be a test that he does not pass, at least over the first couple of months?
That's interesting. I feel like he can get away with a lot because of that speed. Again, like Chandler Simpson, it's not a perfect comp because he doesn't have the bat to ball that Chandler Simpson does, nor does he have the speed that Chandler Simpson does. But Chandler Simpson makes that work because he's just going to be buzzing all over the place. Right. Justin Crawford's a little bit less than that with a little bit more power. So if he's hitting the ball to the gaps and turning a single into a double, or like that ball into the corner yesterday, he was standing up at third base when I think a lot of people may have taken a wide turn at second and then gone back. I think that's going to help him. But I just think it's going to be a little bit, I don't think we're going to be amazed by anything he does. I think we're just going to be even more solidified in our belief that, hey, he's just a guy who hits the ball on the ground a lot and relies on his speed. I'm not expecting any big changes to his profile. That may have happened had he gone to Reading and gotten that opportunity to really dominate and be like, I know I can do this already. Let me try some new things. Now I think let me just show who I am right now.
Okay. My next assignment I wanted to mention is a guy who led qualified AA hitters in strikeout rate last year, and he is heading back to AA, and that is Spencer Jones of the Yankees, who turns 24 in May. There's usually a lot of propaganda out there around spring training and stuff like that about how good Spencer Jones is. I think it is notable that the Yankees didn't think he was quite ready for AAA, and I would tend to agree with them. But do you think Spencer Jones has a chance of turning the page here? Is he kind of just is what he is at this point? Because he's obviously a very divisive prospect because of the tools and then the hit tool kind of bringing everything down.
Yeah, he's a fascinating one because this time last year, I remember going to Somerset and being like, "Hey, I noticed your stance changed." Like, and you hit, I think it was either the longest ball of spring training for the Yankees or something along those lines. It clearly worked in spring. So it was like, okay, what are you going to do? Like, show me. I have some video here of what you did last year. Let's talk through what you're doing this year. And then he had the year that he did. It clearly didn't click. Then he goes into this offseason, makes additional changes. I talked to him about it this spring, and he was like, yeah, I'm like leaning over the plate more, but that just seems to be me, like the key to unlocking my athleticism, because he has it. We know he's a pretty good runner, especially for his size. He just needs to get more into his backside and really, get the ball or the barrel through the zone faster. And that seemed to be what worked for him. Now we need to actually see it at AA, like a fool me once situation, right? Like I've heard about what changes you've done going into a AA season before. Now we're hearing about additional changes. What does that mean? We'll have to see. I'm hopeful that repeating the level means he can get that strikeout rate down. If he makes contact, it's loud, and it's not like a Justin Crawford situation where he's relying on that speed. Like, it's going to fly all over the field. I think he probably is in Scranton by mid-May, almost in a like, okay, now prove it situation. Like, we've given you enough time back at a level you already know. But I kind of would have liked to have seen him at AAA just because he got such a full year last year. And I know they don't want him completely drowning at that level, but I don't think it's as big a jump as it once was. And yeah, I just would want to see the guy take on that next challenge. So I'm not expecting like him to have a strikeout rate in the low 20s all of a sudden because of these changes. But I think he'll have enough institutional knowledge of the Eastern League to get out to a decent start and be in International League within a couple weeks.
Yeah, I think because he'll probably get promoted kind of around when I'm putting out my next update. And so I'm trying to think like ahead, like what would he have to do at AA for me to move him up before he gets to AAA? Like 28% strikeout rate. I think, kind of, a couple points below 30% at least, I think I would need to see before bumping him up. Just because he's repeating the level. Like if it's like 31, 32%, I'm going to be pretty disappointed in Jones.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Who's your next guy, Sam?
My next guy this falls in line. Like, you look at the guy's career, it's not a surprise. It's Chase Dollander of the Colorado Rockies at AAA Albuquerque. Now, he dominated high A last year, dominated AA. The thing I was surprised about in some ways is like sending him into Albuquerque is, setting fresh meat into the lion's den. Yeah. Albuquerque is notorious for being one of the most hitter-friendly, if not the most hitter-friendly ballpark in all of the minor leagues. Albuquerque pitchers last year had a 6.59 ERA as a team. That was the highest in full season minor leagues. That shouldn't surprise anybody. But no other club had one above 6, and they were at 6.59. So sending Dollander to Albuquerque, I think is like, listen, if you're a Colorado Rockies pitcher, you got to learn how to pitch at altitude, right? Like, you don't want it to be a shock by the time you reach Denver. I get that to some degree, but you look at what like the Angels do with their pitchers, right? And even Caden Dana is at AAA Salt Lake. That's a little surprising to me as well. But they normally have their guys skip over AAA entirely because they don't want them giving up, a 93-mile-an-hour homer in the thin air and in the elevation. I'm a little surprised Rockies didn't follow that lead and send Dollander back to Hartford and be like, hey, man, you shove for 3 starts, you'll be here. Because they very much were considering him for a rotation spot in the majors this spring. They gave him lots of looks, and the stuff was good in his AAA debut. Touched 99.5, averaged 97.4. He had a changeup, a short upper 80 slider, upper 70s curveball. It's a deep arsenal. It's a good one. The velo is there. But again, like, you can have all the pieces and still give up 5 runs in a start in Albuquerque. So I was a little surprised he got pushed out there.
Do you think the Rockies will be like just kind of, this is a process and like they almost maybe already know how many starts they want to see from him at AAA, or will they actually be caring about him giving up 5 runs or 6 runs in a start if the strikeouts and walks are kind of fine.
Yeah, it might be a workload issue. That is something to consider there. Like, you don't want to bring him up if he's only going to throw 4 innings in a start at the major league level. So maybe that's part of it. I haven't heard about that directly.
Yeah.
But again, like, they were seriously considering him.
Right.
I was hearing lots of chatter on that this spring, that he was seriously in a spot there, because the Rockies need as much homegrown pitching as they can get. So having a guy waste bullets in the minors if they think he's major league ready is not something they should really be entertaining. And Dollander has that upside to be a future, ace of that rotation. So I was a little surprised, but if he's making his debut by the end of this month, then I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I would think so, but we'll see. And then that is just good to point out. Like, obviously, if you're rostering a Rockies pitching prospect in Dynasty, you kind of know what you're signing up for. But just the Albuquerque, good to note that the numbers might be pretty rough for Dollander. So I have another AAA guy, and this one it's kind of, so it's Luke Keaschall of the Twins, and he's returning from Tommy John surgery, and he had a pretty good spring. And I've been hearing, from people that cover the Twins, that basically that second base job is his whenever they think he's ready. And I just think it's notable that with, Royce Lewis banged up, Brooks Lee banged up, Keaschall at second base at AAA, just one step away from the big leagues. I don't necessarily think he's going to be up in April or May, but I think June is a possibility if Keaschall hits the ground running. So I just think it's worth noting that he's ahead, I think almost ahead of schedule in his recovery, and the Twins feel good about how well he's hitting the ball to send him out to AAA.
Yeah, I think, let me just double check this real quick, but I think he actually started at second base yesterday, which is a very good sign. Yeah, it started at second base, was replaced mid-game, probably just to get him out, a couple innings there. Yeah. But yeah, after DHing basically all spring, for him to now be playing the field is a pretty good indication that, like, okay, let's see how this goes. And I think it's going to come more down to the defense than it is the offense, because that guy hits at every level.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's like, I just think you look at the other I don't think they love any of the other options at second base. Like, I think the Edward Julian thing, I don't think they're married to giving him playing time. So yeah, I just, Keaschall coming into the year wasn't a guy that I thought we'd hear that much from this summer, at least as like a big league option, but I'm starting to think there might be a time this summer where he's a hot ticket ad in Fab leagues. So just wanted to mention that one. Okay, Sam, I don't know how many more you have left. If you got a couple more, we can go one by one, but if you just,
yeah, this one is a little bit more of a deeper cut. Cool. He's somebody at the very bottom of our Cardinals top 30 right now. It's Luis Gastelum, who is opening the year at AA Springfield. He is a pure relief prospect, spent all last year, or most of last year anyways, at single A Palm Beach, had a 2.81 ERA, 70 strikeouts in 488 innings, was pretty old for the level. He had only been signed in April 2023 when he was 21. He's already 23 now. So I get it. But then that changeup, it's one of the best changeups in all the minors. Like, I would put it right there with somebody like Craig Yoho. And we're already seeing Craig Yoho get tons of interest. He might have been the best relief prospect in the minors last year. Luis Gastelum's changeup was right there with it. It was 81 to 84. It had negative IVB, so it just like dropped off a table. It moved 15 to 16 inches arm side. 50.8% of his changeups resulted in called strikes or whiffs. Now, that, again, that's at single A. It's against inexperienced hitters. I totally understand that. But just the movement profile on it is completely Looney Tunes, and he threw it almost half the time last year. And I think he's, it's a new player development structure right now with the Cardinals. They brought in some guys from the Guardians organization. Those tend to really know how to develop pitching. The fact that they're getting aggressive with Gastelum is like, and he showed out in spring this year too. He got some looks in the Grapefruit League, and that changeup was doing everything we saw last year in the FSL. So he's a fascinating one to me. I thought maybe there was a chance he would make the majors this year. The fact that he's starting out AA definitely puts that in play, and I would love to see how that Cambio plays against top level bats.
Yeah, that's a great deep cut to throw out there. Luis Gastelum with the Cardinals, and I'll be working on my relief pitching prospect rankings article here in the coming days/weeks. So looking at the Cardinals after Ryan Helsley, doesn't seem like they have kind of a obvious, closer in waiting. Maybe eventually that's a guy like Tink Hence if he can't handle a starter's workload, but great to point out guys that have late inning upside in a system that kind of lacks options like that. So love that call out. Another AAA guy I wanted to shout out, Tre Morgan of the Rays. Tre Morgan, probably the best defensive first baseman in the minors. So defense, not an issue, but he was at AA last year, 21 games, hit 211, unlucky on balls in play, but just wouldn't have been surprising at all, I think, for Morgan to just go back to AA for a month, 6 weeks, something like that. But the Rays jumping him to AAA after he spent time in the Arizona Fall League, just notable to me because, they don't have the same level of big league position player depth that I think they've had in past years. So the fact that Tre Morgan's kind of one call away, if he hits the ground running, certainly something to keep an eye on.
Yeah. Tre Morgan, he's technically opening on the IL. I'm still tracking down exactly what he's dealing with, but I don't expect it to be very long. I remember Carson Williams saying at the breakout game, we're expecting him back pretty soon. So I think part of the calculus there is like the Rays all of a sudden are very loaded with first base prospects in the middle of their system. Xavier Isaac, who has dealt with an elbow issue, wasn't named to the Montgomery roster today, but I think he'll join them eventually. And then they pick up Will Simpson from the A's in the offseason, who is another AA player. So like somebody had to either get moved down, which you don't want to do with prospects of this caliber, or get pushed up. And I think they really like that Tre Morgan is a guy who prioritizes putting the ball in play. And he could play first base defensively, like you said, in the majors tomorrow. No problem. I remember Dylan Cruz last year, his former LSU teammate, being like by far the best defensive first baseman I've ever seen in my life. The guy just looks so graceful over there. He almost looks like a shortstop playing first. Mm-hmm. So I think he can hit the ground running just because he does put that ball. He's not going to be your typical like 15, 20 homer first baseman or somebody like the ideal, which is more of an Xavier Isaac type, right? Who's has 30 plus homer potential. If he scrapes 10 to 12 homers, that might be where he ends up long-term, but he can provide value by getting the ball in play, by scooping up everything his way at first base. And we know the Rays, like if you are really good at one thing, they will put you there and they will cover the hole somewhere else. Like with a Carson Williams, who's more of a power hitting shortstop who has the contact issue. Those puzzle pieces work really well together.
Yeah, and great point about the first base logjam there at AA for the Rays. Just had a couple quick things in the comments here. Murray says Keaschall got hit on the hand by a pitch, that's why he left the game, but it appears not serious, hopefully. So keep an eye out for that. And then also Murray wanted to know if we have any news on where Bryce Eldridge will start the year. I know that one was kind of injury and sort of TBD whether it was going to be AA or AAA. I don't know if you have the latest on Eldridge at all.
I believe he's expected to move to AA when he does open with the team. Okay. But he is currently dealing with, let me get my notes here, a left wrist injury. So he's going to open on the IL. It says here Sacramento, so we'll see how that goes. Part of it sounds like he got Sacramento last year because they just needed at-bats and the AAA season was continuing to go. So we'll see where he actually opens with, but right now dealing with a left wrist problem.
Okay, so I've got a few sort of smaller ones left, but did you have any more notable ones to get out before we do kind of a rapid fire?
Not really. I think I'll just shout out a few teams quick.
Sure. Yeah.
Obviously, Worcester is the one that I was there for Worcester opening day. Roman Anthony and Marcelo Meyer together. Both of those guys have already homered. Marcelo Meyer homered onto a roof yesterday in Jacksonville. Roman Anthony homered twice over the weekend in Worcester. Those guys are doing everything we expected of them early on in AAA. Meyer, that's technically his first time in AAA. He didn't play there last year due to a back issue. And then West Michigan, the Whitecaps in the Detroit Tiger system, their high A affiliate, got announced this morning. Max Clark is there. Kevin McGonigal is there. Josue Briseño, the Triple Crown winner in the Arizona Fall League. 3 top 100 guys anchoring that lineup. That's going to be such a fascinating team to see. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if Clark and McGonigal move pretty quickly out of there. Clark got a decent sample size last year at West Michigan. McGonigal had a hamate problem that cut his season short, but like we know that guy has maybe the best hit tool in the minors. He's certainly in the conversation, the way he controls the zone and hits the ball hard when pitches are in the zone. So I could see him moving quickly. I think Briseño, one thing I was told by the Tigers this spring is that they're going to lean more on the bat. He's going to split time between catcher and first base. But if they think the bat is AA ready, then they'll just move him to AA. They're not afraid to be like, oh, well, he still needs to get work at catcher. It's like, no. We're going to lean on the bat here. If it's as good as we think it is, we want to push this guy aggressively. And potentially he's bumping up to Tyrone Lorenzo, who's the catcher at AA now and was his Arizona Fall League teammate. We've already seen those guys combine. Last year was Briseño getting work at first base in the AFL because he was coming off a serious knee injury. I think they believe more in Lorenzo defensively anyways behind the plate. But some really interesting groupings that in the middle of the Tiger system.
Yeah, the writing did seem to sort of be on the wall with Briseño as sort of, the Tigers value defense quite a bit. And so not surprised that he might just be kind of a first base DH type going forward. And then the Max Clark one, I did have that as sort of a notable one just because, he was good at AA last year, played 30 plus games, I think. Walker Jenkins is going to AA. So I would expect Max Clark to do well in a return to high A and then be up in AA in short order there. Just a couple ones you mentioned kind of in passing. Caden Dana going to AAA, notable because the Angels often will keep their best guys at AA. And then I also thought it was notable that Christian Moore is going to AA and not AAA because there was talk that maybe he would win a job, and obviously a hitter AAA, nothing really to worry about there. So any thoughts on the Dana and Moore assignments?
Yeah, I mean, I think Dana stands out more to me for the reasons that you talked about. It's just, they treat Rocket City like their AAA club, the way they call guys up. So to send him to Salt Lake, I think is interesting. I wonder how much of that is because of their earlier start and getting him readier earlier. But still, I think that's a risk. You're really going to have to lean on the data there instead of the results on the page. And I agree with you on Christian Moore, but again, that's more of a traditional assignment to me for the Angels because they're not afraid to skip over Salt Lake completely. So him going back to where he ended last year and being an SEC guy, Tennessee guy, ready to dominate. If he does what we expect him to do and they have an opening at second base, it's not going to be a problem to call him up from there.
That was exactly what I thought it was. It's just the geography of sending him to either Utah or Alabama just seemed like he would probably prefer to be. So a couple quick ones on just guys returning from injury. I thought we're kind of given soft landing spots. Braden Montgomery of the White Sox heading to single A. Obviously, he's going to have some rust to knock off probably just after all the time he missed, but I would assume we see Braden Montgomery push to high A, after a month, 6 weeks, something like that. And then Jeferson Quero of the Brewers going to AA. He's obviously returning from injury. I thought that was notable just because, he could have maybe gotten to AAA, but I assume they just kind of want him to have an easy assignment to begin the year there.
Yeah, that one I've actually updated since because he was playing with the AA team in spring. So when we were doing projections and he didn't make the AAA roster, I thought okay, he's going to Biloxi. I've checked in with the Brewers. He's probably going to Nashville end of April. He's obviously coming off the shoulder and then dealt with a hamstring that slowed him down further. So they were already being super cautious with him. They wanted him to get he's even probably still going to DH a decent amount when he gets back to Nashville. But I think, initially it seemed like, okay, he's not breaking with the sound, something's up there. Maybe they just send him back again, like you said, for a soft landing. But we've updated that since. It's more just easing into the season. And if it's not one thing, it's another. If it's not the shoulder, now it's the hamstring.
Sure. And then this one's my version of a deep cut, just because not all the team top 30 landing spots are out yet, but the Yankees one is out. And I thought it was quite notable that Carlos Lagrange is going to high A. He's a guy that I've sort of had pegged as a future reliever for a while, just because of how much he struggled to throw strikes. But then he has, I think he probably made a positive impression during the spring breakout, and obviously was lighting up radar guns. Does this assignment to high A mean that they're moving him to relief, or does it mean that they actually think he could have success at high A as a starter, Carlos Lagrange?
Yeah, that one's a fascinating one to me too, because he was somebody who I saw a little bit of in the Arizona Fall League last year, and like the fastball is really going to play. If it were up to me, I would just move him to relief and let it fly. I mean, he still hasn't thrown more than 40 innings in a season. So I haven't, like, Jim Callis does our Yankees list, and he did that and he sourced it out and everything. So he could speak to this better than I can. But if it were up to me, I would be like, okay, yeah, we moved you to high A. Let's see what that fastball can do in shorter spurts and see how quickly we can get you to the Bronx, because time's kind of ticking now on, him bumping up against 40-man time and Rule 5 stuff and all that. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see how it goes. But
I think it's just, I love it when teams will give a guy like a assignment that I think is really aggressive. Like the Rangers did it with Sebastian Walcott last year, where it's just like, whoa, like, what are you doing with this one? Because then if Lagrange is actually better or like more equipped for this assignment than I'm thinking, then all of a sudden it's like, wow, that actually means something. But it's also just quite possible that they are just going to throw him in the deep end, see how he does first month, and then maybe they pull the plug on him as a starter.
Yeah, I mean, some of this is testing too, right? Like, hey, if you're not going to be a high A starter, then you're not going to be a major league starter. So let's see how it looks here, instead of continually, like, slowly dragging you along and waiting for the success to come. Let's just test it out now, and we can make a decision quicker. Well,
this has been another fantastic year of looking at these most interesting minor league assignments, Sam. I don't know if you have anything else you wanted to get off your chest, but if you want to maybe let people know at least what you guys are working on and where they can follow your work.
Yeah. So as always, we're at MLB.com/pipeline or just MLB.com. You can typically find our stuff on the homepage as well. We're going to be doing stories on the starting spots for all top 30 prospects. A lot are coming out on Thursday. It's an off day across the majors, or for most clubs anyway. So we're trying to get them out when there's going to be the most attention paid to that kind of stuff. And obviously with AA, high A, and single A opening day on Friday, those are pretty well timed. So check out MLB.com/pipeline or your favorite team's MLB.com homepage for more info on all of this stuff. And, in general, we're constantly updating the top 100 rankings, the top 30 rankings as guys graduate. We've already seen Dylan Cruz come off, and we replaced him with George Lombard Jr. We'll be doing that all season at MLB Pipeline. And then I've got the Show Before the Show podcast, the Minor League Baseball podcast that comes out every Friday. So we'll be talking more assignments there and all the news that happens across minor league baseball, whether it's on the field or off the field.
Very good, Sam. Thank you so much again for your time. This has been fantastic. And thank you to everyone for listening. This has been the RotoWire Prospect Podcast, brought to you by Vivid Seats. I'll be back with another episode next week.